Hey man, you ever looking to flatter?
Okay, I'm going to get right into this. I slowed this little part down here. Um, I made a lot of observations this day, and I wanted to just put a couple of them out there um, and talk about some of the crazy optics that we get. Now, people that follow my channel know that this island right here is Hernando Beach Islands, and there's a string of them that run across uh, toward my south. Now, I'm at Pine Island, which the big island out there is 4.84 miles away. As you can see, my camera is fairly low. I'm not sure exactly how high I had my camera up, but I'm always one of these low perspective guys and like to have my camera down low. Um, but I noticed that as I zoomed in and got closer to these objects, um, they got very distorted. So I had distortion, but my visibility was unbelievable. I mean, you can literally see water going well beyond the islands. And now look, when I zoom in, everything, all the edges of the object is distorted, and the object itself is distorted. But you can make out that this is the island. There's the gap that I usually film in between on that one spot. Um, and I just was like, wow, this is some crazy stuff here. And I had this, this was from November 4th, 2018. So I had this for almost a year and never really looked at the footage because the first couple of videos, everything was so distorted, and I thought, but then when I'm reviewing them again, I decided that, hey, I'm going to take a closer look at this stuff and, see really what it is. Now, what you see me doing here is turning my compensation exposure up and down. And you can see as I add more light, of course, your camera takes in more light. Everything gets, hidden within that light. Now, this part here, I put it on a blue filter to see if it would help me out. And after I seen this little bit, I thought, well, maybe I should have. This was only 18 seconds, and I slowed it down 2 times on this part too. But it was crazy because now I'm seeing water well beyond these islands. And normally, the islands, the water ends right at the edge of the islands, even from a high perspective. Actually, I've had these islands look like they were floating from on top of this little observation deck behind me. Now, this little observation deck behind me is only about 3-4 feet up off the ground, the sand that it's on, and then there's a little seawall built up. But on a high tide, I've actually seen the water go over that seawall and underneath this deck on an extreme high tide. And in the next video, after this next transition, I'm going to go up to the deck. And I even found a little part in my video where I even say I'm going to go up to the deck. So I do plan on putting some of this footage out. I might just put it all out in 3 or 4 or 5 different parts. Or I might just make one big-ass video of it and just make it unlisted. And for people that are interested in looking at these optical effects, just ask me. I'll give you the link to it. Even some of the trolls, if, if they want it, all they got to do is ask. I'll be more than happy to give it to them, and they can look at this themselves. And I'm honest. I'm not going to say that. When I go up on the deck, I'm not going to say that I'm way down on the ground because I'm not. I'm up on the deck with my 5-foot tripod, So I've got 5 feet for the tripod, about 4 feet to the top. That makes 9. And then the water was not really low. It wasn't a low tide. So I'm thinking the water's 2-3 feet below me, below the seawall. So, you know, we're going to say 11, might as well even say 12 feet on this next part. And I'll tell you when we get to it. But this right here, I'm down fairly low. I'm up on the seawall, but you know, again, it's not very far down from the seawall. So I'm maybe at 7 feet here. Now, if you look at that, this is something too that I'll bring up. That if you look at different objects out there in the water, like the Bayport racks is the closest rack to me. And now if I draw a line to that Bayport rack, say on this next part when I get up to here, let it change over to it. I'm going to make some points that I think would be very interesting. The other point I want to make is what causes this visibility distance. What stops us from seeing farther each different day? Like, you know, you'll get a visibility range of 1 mile, 2 miles, 3 miles, all depending on the different conditions, right? Weather conditions. So, okay, let's look at these islands. Say I pick out 12 foot, one of these areas with trees. Now, if I draw a string line out there to that 12 foot mark on one of these islands, I'm still looking. I'm looking down. I'm looking down because you see more water out there. Okay, now take that bird rack, which is a halfway marker. Say I go to 12 foot on that. See, I'm up higher. So when I get out further, then I'm having to drop that string line lower. And then something even closer, my string line is going to be higher. So the farther out we see, you know, you're talking about eye level. You can never really tell the true eye level, because when you get out to even something that's way out there on the edge of that visible water, which I still think water goes beyond that. It's just a cutoff point. My visibility distance or my visibility limits for this day was at that water line, well beyond what I usually see. Even though this was a day where heavy distortion was there, my visibility was still there. So I had distortion because of the weather conditions, but I also had visibility on top of it, taking it out. Now, a glober's going to claim, no, this is all refraction. But meanwhile, the sun is totally kind of being blocked, as you can see here. There's no sun rays, no big heavy light, because it was a very overcasted day. So I didn't have a whole lot of light to deal with. But I will admit that the lighting was very strange. The further out in the distance that I went, it just seemed like, you know, you could see this difference. See how it kind of glared out? So my visibility levels seemed to change as I moved across the horizon. Like I've said before in some of my videos, that these change. And again, you know, when you start looking at eye level, it changes from point to point to point to point, the farther and farther out that you are able to see. So again, you know, when I see in some of this footage, I got basically all the racks, including Cutter's Rock. That's why I think that this footage was really important. But also, like I say, it's some crazy optics because of this distortion that I had to deal with. But, you know, if I'm standing up on this deck and I'm looking out there at Cutter's Rock, and I say, well, draw a line to Cutter's Rock, wow, I'm still kind of looking down. So there's water well beyond Cutter's Rock even. Now, this was Hernando Beach Rack that I had always mistaken for Billy Steele's. And you can see that there's a boat off to the right. Yes, it's a distorted boat, but it is off to the right. And then some of the footage I've got the North Rack with a boat going behind it. And like I said, too, I got Cutter's Rock. I didn't get a boat going behind it. I actually, at this time, I was still thinking that these racks, I had them all correct. My mistake was basically it wasn't on my navigation map for me to pick it up, and that's where I actually got my mistake. And then here's the actual Billy Steele's to the left. If I go back, I think I do move over back to the left. Come on, Dave, move over back to the left. But anyhow, you can see this boat, and you can see the distance, that boat is from the other horizon. Now, too, I slowed some of this footage down because I'm just kind of zooming around, and I was missing some things. So I did slow it down for myself and view it in slow motion. And oh my God, it took me almost all day yesterday just going through it, reviewing it, and slowing parts of it down in this conversion program, just so I could take a closer look. And I was seeing a lot of stuff that I'd never seen before out there, which for me, it was actually awesome to see this footage. Now I know, some people are going to say, oh, well, this isn't impressive because everything is distorted, or they're going to accuse me of being out of focus. Believe me, the first part of these videos, I was doing little like 1, 2 minute, 50-second videos because I kept trying to get it all in focus. And I'm like, what am I doing wrong here? And it was nothing that I was doing wrong. It was basically just the distortion. And you can't focus on distorted objects out there. You just can't. But that doesn't mean that they're over the curve, because even some of the objects that were close to me, I had a hard time focusing on and couldn't get a real clear focus. And you'll see that, well, whoever wants to really go through and look at this footage, and, it's going to be for these people that are really into these optical effects that are going to want this link. So, when I get it made, anybody that asks, I'll try to write their name down, and then comment back to them and let them know that, what the link is, and they can watch it themselves. Now, this sign right here is actually where Cutter's Rock is, and at this part of the day, I guess there was just too much light out there, or I had my camera set for too much light, but that's where Cutter's Rock is actually at. And then you're going to see me zoom right past the north rack. There it went. And here's something too. To the north of me, there's 3 islands that sit out there that I made a claim one day that there's land beyond them. And, I think I did have a few people that, were iffy about it. And then there was some that said, yeah, but it's too hard to tell. Well, here's a little bitty taste of that. And I slowed the very last part of this video down to show you that you can see these islands, and then you start seeing land, because you'll start seeing this dark area coming up. Right in here somewhere is where I slowed it down. You'll start seeing this dark edge above the water. That is land, people. It's just distorted land that, here it comes. Hang on. There it comes, right there. That's distorted land. And then there's the islands out there that you'll see faintly. But I got better footage of it that I'll present. But I just wanted to put this little bit out, and then see if I can get some